Nicole's hands shook as she stared at the hospital bill. The numbers blurred together through her tears. $50,000. She read it again, hoping she was wrong. But no, $50,000, and they needed it in 2 weeks, or her mother would have to leave the hospital. "I don't have this kind of money," Nicole whispered to the nurse behind the desk. "Please, there must be some mistake." The nurse's face was kind but firm. "I'm sorry, honey. Your mother needs that surgery next month. Without payment, we can't keep her here." Nicole stumbled out of the hospital into the cold evening air. The wind bit her cheeks, but she barely felt it. All she could think about was her mother's pale face in that hospital bed, getting sicker every day. How could she find $50,000? She made barely enough money at the cafe to pay rent and buy food. That night, Nicole couldn't sleep. She lay in her tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling with its water stains and cracks. The numbers haunted her. 50,000, 50,000, 50,000. The next morning, Nicole dragged herself to work at the Floral Spoon Cafe. Her feet hurt before her shift even started. She tied her apron and forced a smile onto her tired face. The cafe smelled like coffee and fresh bread, and the bell above the door jingled constantly as customers came and went. "Table 5 needs more coffee," her boss called from behind the counter. Nicole grabbed the pot and headed over. That's when she saw him again, the old man who came every single day at exactly 9 o'clock. He always sat at the same table by the window, always ordered the same thing: black coffee and toast with butter. He had deep wrinkles on his face, white hair that was neatly combed, and kind blue eyes that seemed to notice everything. "Good morning," Nicole said, filling his cup. She tried to sound cheerful, but her voice cracked. The old man looked up at her. "You seem troubled, young lady." Nicole blinked back tears. "I'm fine, sir. Just tired." "I've been coming here for 3 months," he said gently. "I've watched you work harder than anyone I've ever seen. You're never fine. You're always worried. What's weighing on your heart?" Something about his voice made Nicole want to tell the truth. Maybe it was because he was a stranger. Maybe it was because she had nobody else to talk to. Or maybe she was just too tired to keep pretending. "My mother is dying," she said quietly. "The hospital says I need $50,000 in 2 weeks, or they'll send her home. And if they send her home, she'll die." The old man was silent for a long moment. He stirred his coffee slowly, the spoon clinking against the cup. Nicole waited for him to say something polite like, "I'm sorry," or "I'll pray for you." The things people always said when they didn't know how to help. But he didn't say that. "What if I could give you the money?" he asked. Nicole nearly dropped the coffee pot. "What?" "What if I could pay for your mother's treatment? All of it and more?" Nicole's heart started pounding. "Sir, I couldn't accept that. I could never pay you back." The old man smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I'm not asking you to pay me back. I'm asking you to marry me." The cafe seemed to spin around Nicole. The conversations at other tables faded into a buzz. She must have heard him wrong. "I'm sorry, what?" "My name is Charles Henderson," the old man said. "I'm 80 years old, and I'm very wealthy. I'm also very sick, and I don't have much time left. I need someone to take care of me in my final years. Someone honest and kind. Someone who won't just see me as a pile of money." Nicole sat down in the chair across from him without even thinking. Her legs felt like they might give out. But you don't even know me." "I've watched you for 3 months," Charles said. "I've seen you give your own lunch to the homeless man who sits outside. I've seen you stay late to help the new girl learn the job. I've seen you smile at customers even when you're exhausted and your feet hurt. I know enough." "This is crazy," Nicole breathed. "Yes," Charles agreed. "But is it crazier than watching your mother die when I have the power to save her?" Nicole felt like she couldn't breathe. This was insane. You couldn't just marry a stranger, an old man you didn't know. It was wrong. It was like selling yourself. But then she thought about her mother, about the way her mother used to sing while making breakfast, about how her mother had worked 3 jobs to put Nicole through school, about how her mother's hands used to be strong, but were now so thin and weak. "What exactly are you asking?" Nicole heard herself say. Charles leaned forward. I'm asking for a marriage on paper. A partnership. You would live in my home, help me with daily tasks, keep me company. In return, I'll pay for your mother's complete medical care. I'll clear all your debts. And when I die, you'll inherit enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. But what about... Nicole's cheeks turned red. What about the wedding night? The marriage things? Charles shook his head quickly. No, nothing like that. I'm too old and too sick for such things. I just need someone who will be there. Someone who won't let me die alone in that big empty house. Nicole's mind raced. Every part of her screamed that this was wrong. You were supposed to marry someone you loved. Someone your own age. Someone you'd known for more than 3 months of pouring coffee. But love didn't pay hospital bills. Love wouldn't save her mother's life. I need to think about it, Nicole whispered. You have 2 weeks, Charles said gently. I know that's when the hospital needs the money. Here's my card. Call me when you decide. He placed a simple white card on the table and left money for his coffee and a $100 tip. Then he stood up slowly, using a cane Nicole hadn't noticed before, and walked out of the cafe. Nicole stared at the card. Charles Henderson. Below his name was a phone number. That night, Nicole visited her mother in the hospital. Her mother was asleep, breathing with the help of a machine. Her face looked so small and fragile against the white pillow. Nicole held her mother's hand. I don't know what to do, Mama, she whispered. There's a way to save you, but it feels wrong. Is it wrong to marry someone to save the person you love most? Her mother didn't answer. She just kept breathing, in and out, with the machine humming beside her. Nicole cried until she had no tears left. Then she pulled out Charles Henderson's card and stared at it for a long, long time. 3 days later, Nicole called the number. I'll do it, she said when Charles answered. I'll marry you. The wedding happened so fast that Nicole barely remembered it. There was no white dress, no flowers, no family or friends watching and crying happy tears. Just Nicole in a simple blue dress, Charles in a dark suit, and a judge in a quiet office who read words from a book. The whole thing took 15 minutes. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the judge said. Nicole's heart hammered in her chest. What had she done? She looked at Charles, this old man she barely knew, and he gave her a small, encouraging nod. His hand trembled slightly as he signed the marriage papers. It's going to be okay, Charles whispered to her. I promise. But Nicole wasn't sure. Nothing about this felt okay. After the ceremony, Charles made a phone call. Within an hour, a bank transfer went through to the hospital. $50,000. Just like that, Nicole's mother could have her surgery. She could live. Nicole should have felt happy. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt numb and scared. Come, Charles said gently. Let me take you home. Home? Nicole didn't know where home was anymore. She'd left her tiny apartment that morning. Now she was married to a stranger, and everything had changed. Charles's driver, a quiet man named Robert, drove them through town. They left Nicole's neighborhood with its small houses and broken sidewalks. They drove past the cafe where Nicole had worked. They kept going and going until the houses got bigger and bigger, with tall gates and long driveways. Finally, they turned onto a street called Rosewood Lane. The car stopped in front of the biggest house Nicole had ever seen. This is your home now, Charles said. Nicole stepped out of the car and stared. The house, no, the mansion, was made of cream-colored stone. It had 3 floors, huge windows that sparkled in the afternoon sun, and a garden with roses, fountains, and stone paths. It looked like something from a movie. I can't live here, Nicole breathed. You can, Charles said, and you will. Inside, the house was even more amazing. The floors were made of shiny marble. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. There were paintings on the walls that looked expensive and old. Everything was clean and perfect, and absolutely nothing like Nicole's cramped apartment with its stained carpet and leaky sink. A kind-looking woman with gray hair appeared. This is Margaret, Charles said. She's the housekeeper. She'll show you to your room. Your room is upstairs, dear, Margaret said with a warm smile. Mr. Henderson has the master bedroom on the second floor. Yours is on the third floor, lovely view of the garden. Nicole felt a tiny bit of relief. Separate rooms. That was good. Margaret led her up a grand staircase with a red carpet and golden railings. They went down a long hallway, and Margaret opened a door. The bedroom was bigger than Nicole's entire apartment. There was a huge bed with soft white blankets, a desk by the window, a bookshelf, and even a bathroom attached with a bathtub big enough to swim in. Dinner is at 7, Margaret said. Mr. Henderson will meet you downstairs. If you need anything, just press this button. She pointed to a button on the wall near the bed. Then Margaret left, and Nicole was alone. She sat on the edge of the bed and started to shake. What was she doing here? This wasn't her life. She was a waitress who lived in a tiny apartment and ate cereal for dinner. She didn't belong in a mansion with marble floors and crystal lights. Nicole thought about running away. She could leave right now, go back to her old life, pretend this never happened. But then she thought about her mother in the hospital. The surgery was scheduled for next week. Her mother was going to live because of this choice. I can do this, Nicole whispered to herself. I can do this for Mama. At 7 o'clock, Nicole went downstairs. She'd changed into the only other dress she owned, a simple green one. She felt small and out of place in this huge house. Charles was waiting in the dining room. The table was long enough to seat 20 people, but only 2 places were set, right next to each other at one end. Please sit, Charles said. Margaret brought food, chicken with herbs, roasted vegetables, and bread that was still warm. It smelled delicious, but Nicole could barely eat. Her stomach was twisted in knots. You're afraid, Charles said. It wasn't a question. Nicole nodded. She couldn't lie. You're wondering what happens tonight, Charles continued. What I expect from you. Nicole's cheeks burned. She stared at her plate. Charles put down his fork. Nicole, look at me. She forced herself to look up. His blue eyes were gentle and serious. I'm going to tell you something very important, Charles said. I need you to really hear me. Can you do that? Yes, Nicole whispered. I married you because I'm dying, Charles said quietly. The doctors give me maybe 2 years, probably less. I have a bad heart and my body is wearing out. I've lived a long life, 80 years, and I'm ready for it to end. But I don't want to die alone. Nicole felt tears prick her eyes. I was married once, a long time ago, Charles continued. My wife, Sarah, died 15 years ago. We never had children. My brother died 5 years ago. I have no family left. Just money, more money than any person needs. And a big, empty house that echoes when I walk through it. He paused and took a sip of water. His hand shook slightly. I've spent the last 5 years watching everyone around me die or drift away. My friends are gone. The people who work for me are kind, but they go home at night to their real lives. I was so tired of being alone. So I decided to do something about it. You decided to find a wife, Nicole said softly. I decided to find a partner, Charles corrected. Someone who needed help as much as I did. Someone honest who wouldn't pretend to love me just for my money. I wanted the truth, a real partnership where we both got something we needed. What do you need from me? Nicole asked. Companionship. Charles said simply, someone to eat breakfast with. Someone to talk to about the news, or the weather, or nothing at all. Someone to sit with me when I don't feel well. Someone to make this house feel less empty. That's all. That's everything, Charles said. Nicole, I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to come to your room at night. I'm an old man, and you're a young woman, and I have no interest in that kind of relationship. I just don't want to die alone in silence. Nicole felt like she could breathe for the first time all day. Really? You really mean that? I really mean that, Charles said. This is a marriage on paper, a partnership, a friendship. If we're lucky, nothing more. But people will think. Let them think whatever they want, Charles interrupted. We know the truth. That's what matters. Nicole looked around the beautiful dining room with its paintings and fancy dishes. Why me? You could have found someone your own age. Someone who would lie and say they love me? Charles asked. Someone who would count down the days until I died so they could have my money? No, thank you. I watched you at that cafe. I saw how you worked, how you treated people, how you were barely surviving, but still found ways to be kind. That's the kind of person I wanted. I still don't understand, Nicole admitted. Charles smiled. You will. Nicole, I have a plan, a big plan, and I need your help to make it happen. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. For tonight, I just want you to know you're safe here. This is your home. Your mother will get the best medical care available. And all I ask is that you keep me company. Just company? Nicole asked again. She needed to be absolutely sure. Just company, Charles promised. They finished dinner together, talking about small things, the weather, the food, the garden outside. It felt strange but not scary. Charles was kind and patient, and he laughed at himself when he spilled water on his napkin. After dinner, Nicole went back to her room. She lay in the soft bed and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't what she'd expected. She'd been so afraid of what would happen on her wedding night. But instead of fear and shame, she'd found kindness and honesty. Charles didn't want to own her. He just didn't want to be alone. Maybe Nicole thought she could do this. Maybe she could be his friend. Maybe this strange arrangement could actually work. Tomorrow, he'd said, they would talk about his big plan. Nicole wondered what that meant. But tonight, for the first time in months, she felt safe enough to sleep. Nicole woke up the next morning confused. Where was she? Then she remembered the mansion, the marriage, Charles. She looked around the beautiful bedroom and still couldn't believe this was real. After breakfast, Charles asked Nicole to join him in his study. The room was full of books from floor to ceiling, and there was a big wooden desk covered with papers. Sit down, Charles said, pointing to a comfortable chair. I want to show you something. He spread papers across the desk, documents with numbers, plans, and maps. Nicole didn't understand most of it. Do you know how much money I have? Charles asked. Nicole shook her head. She'd never asked. $40 million. Charles said. Nicole gasped. She'd never even imagined that much money. That's too much for one person, Charles finished. Especially one who's about to die. So I've been making a plan. I want to start a foundation, a big organization that helps people who are suffering just like your mother. A foundation? Nicole repeated. Yes. We'll build medical clinics for people who can't afford doctors. We'll create shelters for people who don't have homes. We'll pay for medicine and surgeries and treatments. We'll help families who are drowning in hospital bills, just like you were. Nicole's eyes filled with tears. That's beautiful. But I can't do it alone, Charles said. I'm too old and too sick. I need someone young and strong to help me. Someone who understands what it's like to suffer. Someone who has a good heart. He looked right at Nicole. Me? Nicole whispered. But I don't know anything about running a foundation. I was just a waitress. You know the most important thing. Charles said, you know what it feels like to be desperate. You know what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn. That makes you perfect. Over the next few weeks, Nicole's life changed completely. Her mother had the surgery, and it was successful. Nicole visited her every day, watching her get stronger and stronger. Her mother cried when she saw the hospital bills were paid. How did you do this? Her mother asked. Nicole told her everything about Charles, the marriage, the partnership. Her mother was shocked at first, but then she held Nicole's hand. You're so brave, her mother said, and you have such a kind heart. If this man treats you well, then I think you made the right choice. Meanwhile, Charles taught Nicole everything. They spent hours in his study, going through papers and making plans. Charles showed her how to read financial documents. He taught her about budgets and investments. He introduced her to lawyers and accountants who would help run the foundation. The Henderson Foundation, Charles said, that's what we'll call it, and you'll be in charge when I'm gone. I can't, Nicole started. You can, Charles interrupted firmly. You're smarter than you think. You're learning fast. And most importantly, you care about people. That's what matters most. Nicole worked harder than she'd ever worked in her life. But this was different from the cafe. At the cafe, she'd been exhausted and hopeless. Now she was tired but excited. She was learning. She was growing. She was becoming someone new. 6 months passed. The Henderson Foundation officially opened. They rented a building downtown and hired a team of people to help. Nicole couldn't believe she was in charge of all this. The foundation's first project was a medical clinic in Nicole's old neighborhood. People who couldn't afford doctors could come for free treatment. Nicole stood at the opening ceremony, cutting the ribbon with shaking hands. "This clinic will help hundreds of families," she said into the microphone. Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "Nobody should have to watch their loved ones die because they don't have money. Nobody should feel as hopeless as I once felt. This clinic is here to help." People clapped and cheered. Nicole saw tears on many faces. People who understood exactly what she meant. Charles stood beside her, leaning on his cane, smiling proudly. That night, they sat together in the mansion's garden. The roses were blooming and the fountain bubbled softly. "You were wonderful today," Charles said. "I was so scared," Nicole admitted. "I thought I would mess up." "But you didn't. Nicole, do you know what I see when I look at you now?" "What?" "I see someone who's found her purpose. You're not just surviving anymore. You're living. You're making a difference." Nicole realized he was right. She wasn't the same frightened girl who'd agreed to marry a stranger. She'd changed. She'd discovered she could do things she never thought possible. She could lead. She could speak in front of crowds. She could help people. Over the next year, the foundation grew. They opened 3 more clinics. They started a shelter for homeless families. They created a program that paid for children's medicine when their parents couldn't afford it. Nicole traveled to other cities, speaking at events about the foundation's work. She met mayors and business owners and other people who wanted to help. She learned to be confident. She learned to believe in herself. And through it all, Charles was there. They ate breakfast together every morning. They worked on foundation plans every afternoon. They sat in the garden every evening, talking about everything and nothing. They became true friends. Charles taught Nicole about art and music and history. Nicole taught Charles about modern technology, how to use a smartphone and send emails. They laughed together when Charles accidentally called the housekeeper instead of Nicole because he pressed the wrong button. "You're the best decision I ever made," Charles told her one evening. "You saved my life," Nicole said. "You saved my mother's life. You gave me a purpose." "No," Charles said gently. "You saved mine. You made my last years meaningful. You turned my money into something good. You gave me a reason to wake up every morning." Nicole understood then that this strange marriage had saved both of them. 2 years after their wedding, Charles got very sick. The doctor said his heart was failing. Nicole moved him to hospital, but made sure his room was filled with flowers and pictures from the foundation, all the people they helped. "Don't be sad," Charles whispered. He could barely talk anymore. "I'm ready. I'm not afraid." "I'm not ready to lose you," Nicole said, holding his hand. Tears streamed down her face. "You won't lose me," Charles said. "I'll always be with you in every clinic we built, every family we helped, every life we changed. That's my legacy. That's our legacy together." He smiled at her one last time. "Thank you for being my friend." Charles died peacefully that night with Nicole holding his hand. The funeral was huge. Hundreds of people came, people from the foundation, people the clinics had helped, business leaders, and community members. Everyone wanted to honor the man who'd given so much. Nicole stood at the front and spoke about Charles. Not about his money or his success, but about his kindness, about how he'd seen a desperate waitress and decided to help her, about how he'd turned his wealth into healing. Charles Henderson could have died alone in a big empty house, Nicole said. Instead, he chose to fill his last years with purpose and friendship. He chose to help people. And he taught me that when life gives us choices, we should always choose kindness. After Charles died, Nicole inherited everything, just as he'd promised. But she didn't keep it all for herself. She put most of the money into the foundation, making sure it would continue helping people for generations. 5 years later, Nicole stood in front of a new building. The 10th medical clinic the Henderson Foundation had opened. Her mother stood beside her, healthy and strong after 5 years of good medical care. "I'm so proud of you," her mother said. Nicole smiled. She thought about that terrifying day when she'd stared at the hospital bill with no idea how to save her mother. She thought about the desperate choice she'd made, to marry a stranger for money. Everyone thought it was wrong. Everyone thought she'd sold herself. But they didn't understand. That choice had led her here, to a life of meaning, to work that mattered, to friendship and purpose, and the knowledge that she was making the world better. Nicole wasn't the same desperate girl anymore. She was a leader, a helper, a person who turned pain into healing. "Charles," she whispered, looking up at the sky, "I hope you can see this. I hope you know that your dream is alive. We're helping so many people, just like you wanted." The wind blew gently, rustling the trees, and Nicole felt warm inside. She'd started with nothing but debt and fear. She'd made an impossible choice that everyone judged. But that choice had given her everything: a purpose, a legacy, and the power to help others find hope when they needed it most. Sometimes, Nicole realized, the strangest paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes a choice that looks like giving up is actually the beginning of something magnificent. And sometimes, just sometimes, an act of desperation can transform into an act of love that changes the world. Nicole cut the ribbon on the new clinic, and the crowd cheered. She smiled, knowing that every person who walked through those doors would get the help they needed. That's what home really meant. Not a place, but a purpose. Not walls and a roof, but the knowledge that you're making a difference. Nicole had finally found her home. If this story touched your heart, please share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Comment below, what would you do in Nicole's situation? Would you make the same choice? Turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful story. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that sometimes our hardest choices lead to our greatest blessings.